evidence is going to show.
This is the first impression jurors received of Ronnie O'Neal, the Riverview man charged in a gruesome rampage that killed his girlfriend, his young daughter, and nearly killed his 8-year-old son. O'Neal, representing himself, shouted at the jury during his opening statement.
And the evidence is going to show that law enforcement tampered with evidence.
But the state says evidence is indisputable that the only person responsible for the violent attack on his family is Ronnie O'Neal. And it starts with a 911 call from Kenyatta Barron, O'Neal's girlfriend.
She made that call with fear in her voice.
Kenyatta can be heard pleading for her life. Prosecutors say by then she'd already been shot. And while the recording continued, they say O'Neal can be heard beating her with a shotgun.
The evidence will show that that was just the beginning. That's just the beginning of what happened this evening.
Investigators say after killing Kenyatta, O'Neal brutally murdered his 9-year-old daughter, Ranivia, and tried to stab to death his 8-year-old son, also named Ronnie, before setting him and the house on fire.
We'll hear from the mother of a 14-year-old about the arrest of her daughter's alleged killer. Ronnie Walker is facing charges for the murder of Nalexia Alexander.
In Shreveport, Louisiana, where authorities there are trying to figure out what led to a mass shooting over the weekend that left 8 children dead.
The victims include 3 boys and 5 girls, ranging in age from 3 to 11. Jason Allen has this developing story from Shreveport.
A memorial with balloons and teddy bears is growing outside the Shreveport home where 8 children were found dead early Sunday morning.
There are no words that can fully capture the depth of this loss. No words that can ease the pain.
Authorities say the first 911 call came in at 5:55 in the morning from a person hiding on the roof of the house, while the suspect, later identified as 31-year-old Shamar Elkins, was inside. About 4 minutes later, dispatch was advised Elkins shot everyone at the home before going to another location.
The caller stated that her boyfriend had shot her, taken her 3 children, and fled the scene.
The shooting spree resulted in the deaths of 8 children, ranging in age from 3 to 11. 7 of them were Elkins' own children. He died during a confrontation with police after hijacking a car and leading them on a high-speed chase.
We are not sure there was an exchange of gunfire. It has not been determined yet what was the exact cause of death.
Investigators say the gunman also shot the mother of his children and another woman, both of whom survived with serious injuries.
Learn about their family tree. If there was no father at the home, run for your life, man. If they show exorbitant feminine trait, that's your chance to leave. Because if you don't, they're going to kill you and your baby, like they just did in Mississippi. Shot a baby 8 times in the head. A 2-year-old. Google it. It's a triple murder in Mississippi. Shot 2 sisters and their son who was sleeping in bed. 4 people committed this crime. Not even one person said, "Oh, Ninja, let's stop. Let's leave the baby to be alive." They shot the baby. How do you shoot a 2-year-old 8 times in the head? Only a black American would do that. If you don't believe me, Google Mississippi murders. It happened 3 days ago.
Welcome to 12 News at 4. I'm Walt Grayson.
And I'm Melanie Christopher, and we are following breaking news. We have new information on the triple homicide that happened on Queen Alexandria Lane in Jackson on Saturday.
12 News' Mercy Rain heard from the mayor and the chief of police today. Mercy, what'd you find out?
Yeah, police believe a weapon stolen from a JPD vehicle may have been used in the homicide. Cornelius Carter and Michaela Young, both facing capital murder charges, were in a vehicle during a traffic stop when officers recovered multiple firearms. Just 8 weeks ago, a series of vehicles were broken into.
Women are criminals. Men are criminals. They come together. They can't even One of them won't even step in and say, hey, no, this is not a good idea. You get 4 people, go over there and kill 3 people. They steal a weapon from a police vehicle.
Apartment complexes. During those break-ins, a short-barreled rifle was stolen from a JPD vehicle. The weapon was submitted to the Mississippi State Crime for analysis. Based on preliminary evidence, investigators believe that firearm was used in the triple homicide that claimed the lives of 25-year-old Kiana Weathersby, 30-year-old Erica Weathersby, and 2-year-old Kamari Givens.
The fact that this firearm was recovered in the possession of the homicide suspects underscores the seriousness of the original theft. This was not a misplaced weapon. It was stolen during the commission of a felony after criminals unlawfully entered a marked police vehicle.
So if you wonder why this is, right, I'll just put it in. I'll let you know why this happens, okay? I'll refer you to some papers. Like I have it somewhere here in my notes. Because I've also been asking questions why this happens. So today you're going to hear for the first time why Black America commits these types of homicides, these ridiculous homicides, why they have this extensive violent culture. Okay, there is a paper. I'm pulling this up, so bear with me. Okay, not just a paper, but there's 3 books. There's 2 books and a paper. The first book is called Behavioral Genetics and Crime in Context. It's written in 2006 by Owen D. Jones. When I clip this, I'll put a link to the book in the description. The second book is Lagua et al. It's actually a paper in 2009, 3 years later, talks about genetics and criminal behavior. Recent accomplishments in 2009. And the last one that I personally read, which is at the National Institutes of Health, okay, is by Applebaum and Scarich. It's called The Impact of Behavioral Genetic Evidence on Adjudication of Criminal Behavior. This article was written to help reduce sentencing for Black American men when they committed crimes. To say that there was a genetic component to why these people commit these violent crimes. But because they thought that when they say that it was going to be quote unquote too racist, and most of this research is done by liberal entities, they pick the advantages of it to help reduce sentences of criminal behavior while explicitly saying that genetics has nothing or not the lone factor in criminal behavior. But some of the findings of this was very tricky. Okay, so if you look at sub-Saharan Africa, majority of the countries, if you are not warring, you take countries like Ghana or Kenya, homicide rates are one of the lowest in all of the world. So a lot of these researchers said, if we say genetics and sub-Saharan Africans have such low homicide rates, then that debunks the whole notion of genetics, right? But what researchers found is something different, and I'll read these terminologies for you. The first thing I want you to know is something called behavioral genetics. What is it? Behavioral genetics is a scientific field that studies how genetic variation and environmental factors together influence behavior. So this science studies not only genetics, but another thing, which is the environmental factors together. Okay? It does not claim that genes determine behavior. Instead, it investigates questions such as, why are some people more impulsive than others? In other words, why do Black Americans commit these extreme homicides compared to other races and other people? Even compared to other Black people. Okay? And the central finding is that behavior results from gene-environment interactions. 2 things. Genes, which is the MAOA gene, which is predominantly in Black people, and environmental interactions, which you can underline as Black American culture. So the disappointment in this is that crime is never going to go away until one of these two things are removed. You can remove the gene, but you can maybe remove the environmental interactions. But because of the current state of the environmental interactions, which is with the welfare state, absentee fathers, and all the other things that has become predominant in that society, these violent crimes are with us to stay as long as you are in North America. So the only way you get away from this, and this may not sound pleasant, but it's the truth, is to separate yourself from people that have the likelihood to possess this gene and to be predisposed to these environmental factors. And I'll explain a few things. Genetic predisposition. What is it? A genetic predisposition is an inherited tendency that increases the likelihood of developing a particular trait or behavior. Okay? Predisposition is not destiny. For example, a person may inherit a higher risk of impulsivity. Now, whether that impulsivity develops into criminal behavior depends on factors such as parenting. Listen here. It depends on factors such as parenting, education, peer groups, trauma, and social environment. So let's start going down the list. Parenting. The Black American man is not at home parenting. So that is already an environmental factor. That is a problem. This is why you African women walking around East Africa, if you want to seek a relationship with this group, you have to check to see how they were parented as children. You don't just say, hey, I got myself an American and I'm going to have children with them. And I'm going to breed with them. Oh, because they are black. No. Our families in Africa always checked the family tree of the woman or the man you are going to marry. Our cultures always checked that. They were not exposed to science, but they knew something. And we grew up and we decided not to check these things and we're just moving around and dating. Oh, I'm dating. No. So you're raising a daughter and she reaches college and she says, Dad, I want to marry a dude. And the dude is from a certain culture. You have to check. I say no completely, automatically. But for those of you that are liberal enough and you want to consider it, you have to check these factors because the gene is there. That's a constant. It's not going to change. They all have that impulsive gene. It's there. So they all have the potential to commit violent crime. On the gene side, the only thing that makes them not commit these crimes, like the sub-Saharan Africans, is if the environmental factors are stable enough. But because of the makeup of this group since the 70s, those environmental factors are not in your favor. Okay? So that whether that impulsivity develops into criminal behavior depends on factors such as parenting. We already know that's a problem. It's not going to happen. Education, sometimes, not all the time. School dropouts, they have the highest dropout rates. That's a problem. Okay? And an example is the gang culture in the YNs. They don't finish high school for the most part. Or if they do very poorly. So as a dad, before your daughter marries somebody, look at their high school curriculum, assessment, to see the kind of person they were when they had formal education. Peer groups, the kind of people they hang out with. If they hang out with people that use words like ninja this, rap music, all these other things, you want to disassociate. Peer groups. Okay? Trauma. If they listen to nonsense like Tariq Nasheed and all this bullshit. If they come from an abusive past, their dad was beating their ass, their daddy was not around, which is a bigger percentage of this population. Mama beating their ass, mama on drugs, the crack epidemic, for example. These factors disassociate. And their social environment, the ghettos, where are they from? What part of America are they? Inner city people, suburban black? You see? And if you look, if you didn't hear this from me today, and you just even do a general assessment. Pick a YN and pick a black man in the suburbs. Completely two different black Americans. The black man in the suburb and the black man in the hood are completely two different people. Sometimes they cross paths in certain aspects, but for the most part, they are completely different. A college-educated black person is a completely different person from this nonsense that are terrorizing communities. So the gene environmental interaction, GXE, is what is the reason why Black America is predominantly violent. But scientists and researchers don't want to say this because in America, we are politically correct and everybody is scared to touch this. But this is a very, well, there are 3 books peer-reviewed that have established this fact. And it's been used in courtrooms that because these people have this problem, defense attorneys have used this because that was the purpose of this research. They've used this in sentencing. They can't use it in trial because the crime's already committed. One thing they tell from the studies is you can still tell the difference between right and wrong. So they still know when they are wrong and when they are right, right? You still know, like, remember, if you follow the Julio Fulio trial, when they were reading their sentencing guidelines, all the 2 or 3 of them were very remorseful and they regretted their choices, which means they knew what they were doing was wrong. So criminals and violent criminals know that what they are about to do is wrong. They know, okay? So the gene environmental interaction does not stop them from knowing what is wrong or right. But the impulsivity is what makes them commit these crimes. So the defense attorneys are using this as a way to lessen sentencing. So this is only allowed during sentencing to maybe knock off 2 years or 3 years or take somebody off a death penalty into life in prison. Okay? And before I wrap this up, you're going to hear words in liberal literature like mass incarceration. Mass incarceration is bullshit. It's not, it doesn't exist. It's designed just like, the things black people fight for in America. It's designed to soothe these people and to brainwash you as if white America is walking around people's homes and picking them up and locking them up. Because when you hear mass incarceration, it means you're doing something gigantic, targeting a specific group and locking them up. Like if you look at the prison population, you see a majority one face, hence the term mass incarceration. But it's not the correct term. It's a liberalized term. These people are not being targeted. GXE, as we learn, right, the gene environmental interaction, explains that the person that committed murder is not mass incarcerated. They did indeed commit a crime. So they are incarcerated for crimes they have committed. So it's the right acceptance is saying that Black America is very violent for the most part, and Black America commits violent crimes for the most part. And that is why they are a majority of the prison population per capita. That is the right explanation. Not mass incarceration to make it seem that people are targeted for crimes they haven't committed. They've all committed these crimes. You may find a few cases in the past where maybe justice wasn't rightly served. The jury didn't do a good job. But that's why you have an appellate system in America. You can appeal these charges. But almost 99.99% of the time in criminal cases, they don't win appeals because they have indeed committed the crime. So the underlying factor here is they are mass criminals, resulting in incarceration that proportionately moves to one particular group. And there's enough scholarly data to prove this. Nobody wants to really talk about it. I've known this for a while. I've read these articles in the past, so I know about it. This is why in my early years, I disassociated. It's not out of hate, but disassociation puts you around people that are like-minded, because I'm not spending my time in dangerous communities. I'm not interacting with people that have a potential to harm me. But if you disassociate, then you have nothing to worry about. You can associate with other groups that don't possess these environmental factors or genetic factors.